Hi, everyone. Now, I don't normally like to talk about politics on this vlog. I like to talk mostly about things that I like. But sometimes there are some things that I just have to get off my chest. And this is one of those times, and I can't really promise this won't happen again, but I will be back to the more positive stuff soon, I promise. But today I want to send an open message to Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. And she hosted a town hall recently in which she wanted to convince her constituents of the merits of a massive budget bill, which some call the Big Beautiful Bill, but I'm going to call the Reverse Robin Hood Bill. And it does include some cuts to health services, healthcare, Medicaid. And one woman at this town hall shouted that if these cuts went through, people are going to die. Ms. Ernst's response was, well, we're all going to die. And of course, that response was booed. There was a storm of backlash, a surge, a swelling of antipathy to that response. And yet, Ms. Ernst didn't really seem to understand why people were bothered by that response. How do we know? Because she filmed a follow-up video, supposedly an apology, but more of a faux apology, because her reaction was that she had made a mistake in thinking that everybody at the town hall knew that man was mortal, and at least she didn't have to bring up the subject of the tooth fairy. In other words, in the follow-up video, it became very clear that she did not understand why the woman and other people were angry in the first place. So rather than try to engage with the actual issue, she just deliberately failed to understand, failed to grasp it, didn't engage with it, didn't really address the real concerns of her constituents about this bill. So, why are people upset? This is what I really want Joni Ernst to understand. Why are people upset? Yes, calling out people are going to die in a town hall meeting doesn't spell it out word for word, so I'm going to spell it out for you, Senator Ernst. If healthcare cuts go through, if this bill passes and these healthcare cuts go through, people are going to die of treatable conditions. Treatable conditions, conditions that a person with more money, a person with more resources would be able to survive because, well, they could afford the treatment. And that's what people are outraged about. Because if if we have a situation where you can only survive a particular condition, an illness or injury, if you can afford treatment, and if you can't, then you may as well just die because we're all going to die. That suggests something that is not really all that savory. It suggests this idea that it suggests that your value, what you're worth as a person, is tied inextricably to how much money you have. That whether you deserve to die or whether you deserve to live comes back to how much money you make. how much money you've inherited, etc. So it suggests that poor people maybe don't deserve to survive, that they maybe deserve to die from treatable conditions. Again, I cannot stress that phrase enough. Treatable, treatable conditions. It's my view that in this year of our Lord, 2025, no one should have to die of a treatable condition because they can't afford it. The cause of death should never be being poor. So that's why people are angry. And you didn't address it. You decided it didn't matter what your constituents were thinking or feeling regarding this. Didn't matter. So I am going to hand it over, so to speak, hand my little vlog over. This will be a little bit shorter than usual. I want to hand it over to the classic author Charles Dickens, because he dealt with this idea very famously in his most famous work, Christmas Carol. Just to set up the context, if you happen to be one of those very few human beings on the planet who has no idea what a Christmas Carol is about. At the beginning of the story, Ebenezer Scrooge, our miserly protagonist, very wealthy man, but won't give anybody a dime, is confronted by a couple of charity collectors, and he points out that he pays with taxes for institutions like poorhouses and workhouses, and that anybody badly off needs to go to one of those places. The charity collectors respond by saying, "Many can't go there, and many would rather die." Scrooge's response is, well, if they'd like to die, then perhaps they'd better do so and decrease the surplus population. So what does that surplus population really mean? Evidently, it's part of the population that we can do without, that could be weeded out, and it wouldn't affect the health of society as a whole. Well, later in the story, Scrooge is developing a conscience, and he's observing the ailing Tiny Tim, the son of his clerk Bob Cratchit, and he asks the ghost of Christmas Present whether the boy will live. The ghost of Christmas Present responds by saying that he sees a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved in the corner, and if these shadows remain unaltered by the future, none other of my race will find him here. What then, if he be like to die, he had better do it, and decrease the surplus population. Scrooge hung his head to hear his own words quoted by the spirit, and was overcome with penitence and grief. Man, said the ghost, if man you be in heart, not adamant, forbear that wicked cant until you have discovered what the surplus is and where it is. Will you decide what men shall live, what men shall die? It may be that in the sight of heaven you are more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child. O God, to hear the insect on the leaf pronouncing on the too much life among his hungry brothers in the dust. I really can't say it any better than that. Maybe what you need, Senator Ernst, is a visit from a few ghosts. Thank you.